basically, my involvement in sports is based on being an IOC Young Leader, which is a program under the International Olympic Committee, being a young sports maker under the Global Sports Week Paris 2020 organization, and currently Commonwealth Youth Forum ambassador. My love for sports sprung from a very, very young age, from primary school actually, since grade 1 when I was 7. I participated in athletics, hockey, netball, basically any other sports. PE was honestly my favorite activity at school. So from there on, I started playing a provincial from grade 5 until I got to high school matric. Then I became hockey captain when I got to high school. And after high school, I decided to actually pursue sport further into an actual career, wanting to actually study into sports, which is where I am at the moment, currently pursuing my master's degree in sports management, focusing on the sustainability of sports organizations. Growing up, I definitely did participate in sports codes. I did hockey, netball, and athletics, and we always had like PE at school. So all those softball games and cricket and tennis, those were also games that I really did enjoy participating in. What really intrigues me about sport, I would say it's the freedom of it. It's basically like art. If I were to explain sport, I would call it an art. It's a performance. You get to express yourself as an individual in what you really love, and you get to excel at it, at your potential, at your greatest potential, in fact. So that's what really intrigues me mostly. So every time I used to play sport, for me, it was just a great escape. I always felt like I was in my own world. I always felt like there was just nobody else around me. It was just me and the game. My journey of sport basically started when I was 7 in primary school. And from there on, it just grew. And I just started taking on more sporting codes and just always had a sporting activity to do after school, which was obviously under an extramural activity at that time. So that's where definitely it started. Also first from being a young child playing in the neighborhood, always being the fastest child when we're all playing, definitely always wanting to be the one that's chasing everyone, because I also knew nobody else could catch me. So definitely from a very young age. I studied at the University of Johannesburg, where I started off with a BA degree in BA Sports Psychology. I later on furthered my studies in an honours degree in sports management, and currently now pursuing my master's degree in sports management with the thesis focusing on the sustainability of sports organizations. I got involved with the International Olympic Committee as a young change maker. This was in 2018 when my application got accepted January. There was an application out by our South African NOC and I applied, and luckily enough I got accepted for the program. And basically what we had to do, we got given monthly tasks to execute certain things to basically promote the Youth Olympic Games, which is what we are. It's like promoters, ambassadors of Youth Olympic Games. I got involved, and from there on it started. At that time it was the Young Change Makers, and it was a very exciting program. There were around about like 92 of us globally, where we all gathered in Buenos Aires at the 2018 Youth Olympic Games Buenos Aires. And then I further applied for the Young Changemaker Plus program, which is now what we call the IOC Young Leader, and which is basically promoting social development through sport, where we execute projects in our country, in our communities, where we actually are promoting sports on a very amazing social platform. My views based on the youth, those that are upcoming when it comes to athletes. There's so much to be explored in sports. There are so many things going on around us, not just addressing athletes, but I think just also addressing professionals in the sports management sector, sports administration sector. There's so much to be done, and there's so many doors that are actually opening. And honestly, you can apply sports in so many spheres. It's just how you actually do it also, and obviously approaching the right platforms. But as for the athletes, there's so much ahead of you. Don't give up. South Africa is really performing extremely well when it comes to international platforms of sports. So some of the challenges that I have faced when leading a young group of athletes, I remember in Buenos Aires, I had just met the athletes the day we were actually departing, and I think it was a group of 75 athletes at that time. It was very challenging because everybody obviously comes there with the mindset of competition, and my role as a young change maker at that time was to make competition fun, was just to release the stress, because Youth Olympics is really about, obviously it is about competing, but it's also about having fun, because these were athletes from the age of 15 to 18 years old. So our main focus was to also show them that this is a lot of fun. Sports is supposed to be fun as much as it is also competitive. So it was quite challenging just getting everybody to actually have fun and still focus on the reason why they are actually there. My advice to the youth that are looking to have a successful career in the sports sector, there's so much to be done in sports. There's still so much that we have to explore in South Africa. I've been privileged to be exposed to other platforms internationally, and I can see there's so much room for growth. We just need to step forward and actually make it happen as the youth. So there's so much to be done. Don't be narrow-minded. It's not just the administration of sport. There's so much more. There's still sports science, there's sports psychology, and there's still so much more South Africa that we are willing to tap into. So just be aware and be willing to actually tap into all of these sectors. My current focus at the IOC is promoting sports to young women, where I focus on SDG 4 and 5, promoting quality education to young women from a high school age to lead them into university. So therefore, I work with universities in creating a recruitment program for those that are unable to afford the tuition fees. So my project is currently called Rough Diamond. I'm hoping for it to be launched soon, but currently because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been installed. So the project is focused on young women and recruitment programs at universities and promoting young women to actually make it into universities, institutes, and play sports. My experience as a young woman in the sports sector is, I believe that the current leaders that we have that are women have actually paved a good way for us. There's still so much more work to be done, but so far we have started off on a good leg. So to get my voice heard, it is a bit challenging sometimes. I think it's also not just a gender thing, but it's also a bit of an age thing. So it's just a matter of sometimes trying to project yourself in a different manner. In other words, you could actually just put presentations together, or if you're going to put a presentation, make sure that you have an evaluation and a monitoring sector available to actually show the results. So unfortunately, I feel that I have to go to such an extent, whereas maybe my male counterpart just has to raise their voice in order to be heard. But so far, I would say there's great progress for young women in sports. In terms of leadership roles in sports for women, I would say that we have great leaders so far. They have paved a long way for us. They have really assisted us in terms of actually getting our voices heard and actually creating more room for women. But we need to get to a point where women also end up helping women. I always used to attend conferences and they would speak about the pull her down syndrome, which is something that is very common that I have seen in the industry. So it's fantastic that we have leadership, women that are leaders in the leadership roles, but we need women that are actually going to be uplifting other women. I would definitely encourage more women to get into this space, because there's still so much, as I've said, there's still so much to be discovered in sport. So it's not just the administration of sport, but there's data of sport, there's sports science, there's sports psychology. So sports is not just the management behind it, but there's a whole technical team behind it. And maybe that's where we can start tapping into as women in sports. My greatest ambition when it comes to the sports sector is to become an international advocate, to always support South Africa when it comes to international platforms, not just South Africa, but Africa on an entire continent. There's so much that we still need to discover as opposed to your first world countries. There's still so much that we still have to go through. And I wish to be that individual that actually has the opportunity to deliver that fantastic change on an African platform.